is Mike with MC Productions. Today we are going to go through how we set up a room when we first get to a gig. Now I know that sounds kind of weird, and don't you just put the speakers in? Don't you just turn everything on, plug the microphones in? Well, you can, but what we do is we use a special processor called the DBX-PA2 that basically allows us to use an RTA microphone to tune the room, because every single room is different, every single room sounds different, and most importantly, we want to make sure that when we go into a room for the first time, whether it's a bar, a gym, a school, a theater, we want to make sure that our speakers and our sound is tuned to that room. So some rooms may have a higher bass frequency, some rooms may have a higher treble frequency. What the system does, the DBX-PA2, is take the guesswork out of it, and it's actually using the sound to determine what the room's going to sound like. So the first thing I always like to do is set up the speakers how you would anywhere. In here we're actually set up right now to program some lights for a specific bar in Livermore. So I have my speakers offset slightly. It's just a really odd shaped room, and so we're just going to leave it like this typically, but this doesn't really matter how your speakers are set up. It's how you do the actual settings with the microphone that make a difference. So now I'm going to jump over here to the iPad. Once again, this is all controlled wirelessly, same thing, and we can also monitor it throughout the show, which is another cool feature that I'll show you. So the first thing we start with here on the iPad is we have a direct connection to our DBX system, which is over on the rack. And the nice thing about this is all the speakers run through it out of the main output of our mixer. So our DBX processor acts pretty much as everything we need it to do. It's a crossover. It does the real-time analysis. You can change many EQ settings, as well as fine-tuning it on the mixer later. So what I always like to do is just run through all my wizards when I get into a room and go from there. So when I run all the wizards, it's going to ask me first what I want to do, and I always say, okay, we're going to be in a new room. The nice thing though is if you're in a room that's similar and you've set it up before, you can actually recall those settings. So I'm selecting configuration, I run a stereo, I link the EQs together. My specific speakers aren't listed on here. They do, however, have a lot of common speakers where they can actually, the manufacturer will actually share the frequency cutoffs, etc., for that particular speaker. So, but we're going to go past that. We've got a passive speaker. We're using subs. Our subs aren't on here. And we have two subs. We're going to run a stereo configuration, and we aren't using amps because they're built into the speakers. So now we've told the system basically what kind of speakers we have and how our setup looks. Now it's going to ask, do I have an RTA mic? Now what an RTA mic does is it's a small microphone that you can pretty much set anywhere in the room. Now as we get going through this, it'll tell us different places to move it as we're analyzing the room, but this is what our RTA mic looks like. So do I have an RTA mic? The answer is yes. And this RTA mic just plugs right into the actual DBX processor. So now what it's going to do is do a level assist for us. So I'm connecting the RTA mic, basically creating an equilateral triangle between the speakers. And now you'll hear it start to do some level checks. Okay, so now we've gotten through the level checks. That's basically adjusting the volume of each speaker so that the point in the room where you're taking the measurements from is all equal. A lot of times it's the middle of the dance floor, sometimes it's at the soundboard, it just depends on the room. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to run an auto EQ in the room. So it's going to determine the response of certain frequencies. What it can do is it'll actually reduce frequencies that'll get out of hand. And then what it'll also do too here is it'll create kind of a custom crossover setting for the room as well. So I always like to do best here, which it takes 4 measurements. For the sake of this demonstration, we'll just do 2 here. So the first mic position is going to be where it is now. You'll see the second one is actually where I'll just move it in a couple feet. So we'll start this. So it took its first measurement. Now it's asking me to move it in. So I'm going to move it to about right here. Come back and take the second measurement. Now it's actually going to go through and calculate the room's EQ settings, and you'll see that here in a graphical display when it comes up. So now we see what basically the room looks like. And what happens is the gray area is how the room actually responds to the different frequencies. The yellow line is really what you would want it to look like, and the result is, to get it to look like that, you need to counteract the room. So they're actually, where it's high here in the 50-60 range, they actually come in and lower that to get the desired result, and so on. So we hit continue. Now our auto EQ is done. Now the cool thing is too, is while the band's playing, this piece of equipment also can knock out your feedback. So if you're getting a certain frequency that's giving you trouble, or whatever, it does it live as well as beforehand. It's asking me to perform a sound check. Now for the sake of this, I just have one mic hooked up here. Check, check. So now we have a live working mic. And what I'm going to do is set the mic at about the settings I would like it. And it's going to have me actually remove the gate from the microphone and turn down my input all the way. So I'm going to do that first. So this is bypassing any active noise gates, lowering the mixer outputs. I have my microphone on. I'm going to use 6 fixed filters, and we'll call this music because it's for a band. Now I'm going to slowly raise this, and as it starts feeding back, you'll see it start notching out those frequencies. Okay, so now I'm lowering the outputs. I'm putting the gate back onto the channel. And now we're at performance level. So now it shows what the active filters. Now obviously that was just with one microphone. But when we have the entire band up there, everything from the kick mic all the way to the vocal mic, the guitars, everything gets figured into this equation. And now when we continue, we actually have it set up to monitor the feedback. So I'm going to finish the wizard, and at the end, we have everything done here. So we can add here a stereographic EQ. Right now, I'm not doing any of that because I wanted to do it on its own. Here's the auto EQ that we set up before. So what I'm doing here is, when the show is live, this is going to be constantly monitoring those things. So we have the auto EQ from the first wizard we did. Then we have the feedback suppression. So I'm going to do a live lift here. So as the band is performing throughout the entire show, I have the RTA microphone plugged in, and it's constantly monitoring that. You can leave it up on stage if you'd like, if you're having issues with the monitors. What I like to do is kind of leave it about in the middle of the room somewhere, put it to the side, and just kind of let it do its magic throughout the show. Going back here, then we have the ability to add the subharmonic synthesizer, which is really cool if you want to get some super low lows, or you've got different kind of subwoofers than the band might be used to, and they want a little more punchiness to it. You can take some out. There is a compressor built into this system. We don't use this one specifically. You can have a delay run if we have speakers for the back of the house, and we want to make sure that the sound coming out of those is equal to the mains, and so on. So it set up our crossover, doing the the test that it did before, and it locks it in. And then there's also limiters and everything else that protects the speakers throughout the show, which from our standpoint we really like. Now, once we have this set up, and you can see here with me talking, and I'll actually boost it up, the RTA microphone is picking up what's going in the room right now. So it's constantly monitoring what frequencies are going, and ideally, when a band's performing, you want this all kind of relatively flat there. So there's not major frequencies that are coming out over other ones. And a cool way to do this is with a noise generator. So I have a pink noise generator that I use through my phone, and it basically just creates that type of pink noise sound. What you want during the pink noise is you try to get, if you've done a good setup, you want everything to kind of be relatively around that area. So if I'm quiet, you'll see that everything is pretty even, and I'll bring it all up. The only thing you'll notice is it's not picking up the really, really ultra low frequencies, but we also have those cut out. So from your frequency of 40 up to your 10K is really what is the most important. And you'll see that those are relatively flat when I stop talking. And that is basically how we come into a room for the first time and set it up. And I like to do this every time. They could have changed the arrangement of tables. There could be new carpet. There could be thicker carpet. Anything that can affect sound. I think it's always good to just do this quick 10-minute setup at the beginning of every gig and really know where you're going to be sound-wise.